Welcome to the NICU Dad Podcast, a podcast for NICU dads by NICU dads. I'm Alex Zavala, a father to two preemie girls, Mia, who was born at 30 weeks, and Emerson, who was born at 27 weeks. Combined, my wife Jen and I both spent over 100 days in the NICU. After my last NICU experience, I started the NICU Dad. I did this to try and fill the gap of information and support that was lacking for NICU dads. Be sure and check out thenicuDad.com, and hopefully you will find it a useful resource. In this podcast, we will cover many topics that NICU parents face, but from the NICU dad's perspective. Topics such as premature birth, bereavement, PTSD, and many others. These dads who you'll hear share their stories in hope of letting other NICU dads know they are not alone. For most, the NICU journey doesn't end after we bring our babies home. Some NICU babies need continued therapies, surgeries, and multiple doctor visits. This continued medical care can be just as stressful as being in the NICU. Joining me today to talk about this is Jonathan Hayhurst. He and his wife Jennifer have a 4-year-old daughter, Evie, who was born at 25 weeks. She weighed 1 pound 13 ounces and spent 130 days in the NICU. Jonathan, known to most as Coach Hayhurst, was a 3-year letterman at Oklahoma State University as an offensive lineman. He was named to the academic All-Big 12 team. During his tenure at OSU, he appeared in the 2002 Houston Bowl and 2004 Cotton Bowl. He started a lengthy coaching career in 2004 and is currently the offensive coordinator at Rouse High School. Today we are here with Jonathan Hayhurst, and he is going to share his story with you today about their daughter, Evie. And Jonathan, I'd like to thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'll give you a little bit of background. My wife Jennifer and I, we tried for quite a while to have some kids, a couple of years, and were unsuccessful. And didn't really know why. We didn't do any testing. It just wasn't happening. And so my wife at the time worked for a nonprofit that helped out foster kids. And so we're going to adopt because we were kind of in that world and tons of a need there. And so we started that process, and once we started that process, we found out we were pregnant. And we're like, wow, okay, well, people say that happens, and we were one of those. Started pretty normal pregnancy, nothing, no high risk, nothing that gave us any indication that there would be any problems down the line. We had a trip planned to Mexico and ended up changing that to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where it was cold, so no bathing suits. And that was great. My wife was was in that kind of tired portion of her pregnancy, so I got to watch every single bowl game. So I was very
Nice.
happy about that.
Yeah.
Being a football coach, that was nice. So we get back in that spring. We decided it was time to purchase a house, and we'd started looking a little bit before Christmas break, and through the spring ended up buying a house. And man, it just seemed like all these pieces were just starting to come together. And going to raise this child in a house, not have to be in an apartment or anything like that. And so we finally closed on the house, and we were going to do a little bit of remodeling. So we were kind of in that remodeling phase. And my wife is fashion. I don't know if fashionista is the right word.
Yeah.
So the master closet I was redoing, doing it kind of crib style, wood floor, track lighting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all this good stuff. And so I was up working on it, off and on. Once I get out of school, athletic period to be over, and drive up and work on the house. And I remember one night Jen called me, and she was like, "Hey, I don't feel right." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, I'll be home in a little bit." And so I come home, and she's like, I just don't feel right. And I was like, okay. And she had mentioned she had a little bit of spotting. And so she called her OB and had an appointment that next morning, was going to go see her. And looking back now, I remember that night we have 2 Chihuahuas, and they're always cuddly and hanging around, but that night they were laying on her belly, which is something they don't generally do.
How far along was she?
She was 25 weeks. Well, it'd been 24 and 5, 24 and 6 at this time. And so the next morning, so I get up early, go to work like always. She's got her appointment, and it's fair to be routine. They check her out, and everything will be good. And honestly, I didn't really think about it much that morning. So end up going to work, and Jen goes to her appointment, and I get a call, say around probably about 9:45, 10 o'clock in the morning. And with my job being a coach, I have a head football coach, I have some freedoms. So phone rang, looked at it, answered it, and it was my wife, and she said I'm in labor. They're taking me to Lakeway Regional. I said, okay, I'm on my way. And I walked out of the class I was in, checking on students, and walked right to my office, grabbed my bag, walked to my car, and left. I realized as I was driving, I didn't tell anybody I left. So see, I sent a couple quick texts to coaches, and then finally got to the. Actually, I take it back. At the time, I didn't know she was going to the hospital, so I actually went to the OB's office, which was just right across the street. And so I walk in, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Jonathan Hayhurst, looking, for my wife." And there's about 3 or 4 ladies sitting in the waiting room. And so the lady behind the counter, the receptionist, she's like, "Okay, let me see what I can find. Who's your wife again?" I'm like, "Jennifer Hayhurst." She's like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "She just came in. I think she's in labor." And immediately her face turns ghost white, and she goes, "Yes, she's over there," and points to the hospital. And in hindsight, I'm thinking, we could have hid that a little better, because this means it's not good. And so I end up ending up, I'm kind of like, okay. And as I'm walking out, I see the faces of all the other ladies sitting in there. They're just like, oh my gosh. So head out, go over to the hospital, and it took forever because I guess she had just got admitted. She wasn't in the system. And so they couldn't find her. So I don't know how much time elapsed, but finally got up to where she was in L&D. And there was just this, she was in the room, and I remember being a very large room. And so I walk in and walk up to my wife. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And so, mind you, as a side note, I didn't know anything about premature birth, preterm labor. Like most people, until you experience it, you don't know much about it. And I'd actually worked with March of Dimes through when I was coaching at Wilmington College up in Ohio, and we did a few-year fundraiser because our head coach had a preemie and all this stuff. But to me, it was just this event we did.
That was it.
Yeah. So I never really. I saw the pictures, but didn't have anything. So I'm kind of like, okay, babe, what's going on? And she goes, "Well, the baby's gonna come, and they're gonna put it in that thing," and talking about, I guess, the isolate or whatever they had in the room. They're gonna put it in that, and then they're going to maybe fly it downtown. And I said, okay, all right. And at this point, I was still kind of in that shock moment, and my wife was holding it together pretty well, or at least, and she's good at that. She was, or appeared to be, and then I kind of look at the isolate, and all the stuff. Look back at her, and it kind of dawns on me: wait a minute, your baby's not supposed to be born till July, the end of July, and it's April. Like, this can't be good. And then all of a sudden, waterworks. And Jen's grabbing my hand, trying to console me. Yeah. And she's the one going through labor. So I'm like, okay. So I'm wiping my eyes. I'm like, I got to figure this out. And about that time, they come in to give her the magnesium, which immediately all over the floor, vomits like most people, all this stuff. And of course, watching your wife, being any kind of pain is not isn't very good. And so I'm like, all right. So the one I don't know, one of the nurses or doctors there, I can't remember, was like, "Hey, it's okay, we've got everything." And then her OB had said, "No, the helicopter's on its way. You're going to St. David's downtown. You're not going to have this baby here." And so, okay, sounds good to us. We didn't know about level 1, level 3 NICUs, all the leveling stuff. And so we're just kind of doing the waiting game, and then all of a sudden, these people come in flight suits, and it was it's kind of indescribable, like the regimen and the discipline that they had when they came in. So I remember they come in, and it was a ex-colonel, I cannot remember his name, who was actually was the pilot, and then I want to say Janice was the other lady's name. And so they come in and they're doing all their stuff. They're getting, coming, and the one lady comes to me with all these forms to sign, and so, of course, obviously at that point, you're just scribble a name anywhere. And so I remember, and my thing is I try to be a funny guy, take things in stride. I'm a very positive guy, so I always try to joke, especially when there's bad things going on, get through it. And I remember the nurse asked me, she said, okay, she goes, "You're going to follow us there, right?" And I said, "You guys are in a helicopter, right?" And she goes, "Yes." I said, "Probably not." And she looked at me like, "Okay, well, you're kind of an idiot right now." So, but anyway, we signed all the papers, and man, they had her. I remember when they walked in, the one thing that made it is they said, "We are leaving here in 9 minutes," and I kid you not, they probably left there in 6. Wow. And they were just pulling wires, getting everything, setting Jen up, talking, signing the papers. And then I remember we're pulling out, and my wife goes, "I think this is their pillow." And I remember one of the ladies, "We're keeping the pillow. Let's go." So that happens. So then I'm kind of like, all right, well, I've got to get downtown and I get down to St. David's. We're out in Lakeway, which is, what would you say, about 30 minutes away with no traffic?
Probably, yeah.
So the hill country, or verge of the hill country, all the way to downtown Austin. So I'm walking out of the hospital and get in my car out of the parking garage, and I pull out and I see the Starflight about to take off. And I'm like, man, my wife is, I don't know if she'll want a picture of this, but this is, cool in the essence of, this is a pretty big deal. So I snap a picture of the helicopter. So anyway, we'll come back to that. So I get in my car, so I'm about to leave, and I knew, my wife likes her work, enjoys her work, and obviously she's very well connected with all of her friends, family, all those things. So I knew that the one thing that was going to keep her sane was being able to be connected, and that was her cell phone. So I stopped at the apartment to grab her cell phone charger. So I was like, okay, that's the one thing I know she needs. Didn't grab anything else. So I go in the apartment, grab her charger, tell the dogs we'll be back, and they know something's up. I remember at that time, I'm a Christian, raised Southern Baptist. Now I'm just, I think I'm just a generic Christian. And I remember falling on my knees and definitely praying at that time. And I pray, every night with my daughter now before I go to bed, pray all the time. But that was one of the first times I fell to my knees in a long time. Mm-hmm. Gather myself back, get the charger, driving down to downtown Austin, and get in the parking garage, get in, finally find her. She's up in L&D, and so we get back to labor and delivery, and at this point I'd called my mom on the way, and then I think her sister knew, but we didn't tell her mom because we wanted her mom just to come to the hospital because she was having something. We didn't want to tell her exactly what was going on. Yeah. So because we knew she would drive 100,000 miles to get there, an hour to get there, and so get back in L&D, and they've got the little heart rate monitor strapped to her belly, and doing all those things, and at that point we're just kind of waiting, kind of sitting, and we didn't know it at the time, but we were in the very back of labor and delivery. They told us just because where the elevator was for where the medical helicopter had dropped, and we found out later that they put you in the back because there's a chance your baby may not survive. And so we were way in the back, really, really far from the coffee, and that was important. So that night, one of the nurses comes in and basically gives us, I won't say all the statistics, but just kind of gives us all the here's what can happen, here's what will happen, here's and she did it in a very did it in a very endearing way. She actually started tearing up as she was telling us, which was almost reassuring. Not that we were, what the outcome was going to be, but that, man, these people care about what's going on and what's happening here. And so it kind of gave us all the information. And so my mom made it down. Jen's family was in there, and which was a little bit overwhelming, but, they were all in there. And I didn't leave that room except to, go get my wife some coffee if she wanted to, or maybe it was water on her if she could have coffee at that time. And that was it. And that was just right down the hallway. I know, like, some family members like, yeah, let's go take a walk, or hey, will you get my jacket out of the car? And I was like, I can't be rude, but I can't leave. And that really comes from my grandpa, who he never never seen him leave my grandma's side when she was in any kind of surgery or hospital. And they're 90 years old, or just about 90 now, so they've had a lot of hospital visits. And so I just kind of took that, I respect him a lot, and I was like, no, there's no way I'm leaving my wife, for this deal. This is not going to happen, especially since we knew the baby could come at any time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was trying not to be rude to family members, but like, nah, I can't, appreciate it, but I'm staying right here. And then we had some other family or friends that had brought us like all the supplies and things that we kind of needed in the room. So that first night, Jen ended up laying in labor and delivery for 4 days. And I know she was, wow. So when we got in there, she was 24 and change, and then 25 was when Evie was born. Right at 25 weeks. And I remember they telling us, at that age, or at that gestation, every hour is, there's that much more chance of survival. There's that much more this, that, and the other. And then I know the steroid that they give her to help the baby's lungs, you could take every so many hours. And we didn't know that it was basically 2 doses, and that was all they could give. So we were like, oh, yeah, well, the longer you keep her in, the more we'll just keep pumping that stuff in there. And, the labor and delivery nurses, no, that doesn't work that way. So that first night we're laying there, and I'm just being me. I'm like, all right, I gotta figure this out. And so I'm like, I'm like telling Jen, there's all these preemie clothes. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, I'm gonna learn how to knit. I was like, I'm gonna knit her little preemie hats and preemie sweaters. Until I watched a YouTube video on how to knit, and I was like, oh, that's probably not gonna happen. That's a little more difficult than I thought. And then I started looking up, kind of just Googling supports or whatever. And I don't remember, but I'm almost positive I came across the Hand to Hold website that night. I just vaguely remember the outline of it and what the website looks. Yeah, and so I was reading Jen some stuff off of it, and we were talking. The family was gone at this point, and I don't, there's no telling how late we were up that night, just kind of talking and chatting, because she was wired, I was wired, and and we're just constantly listening that heartbeat was just going and going and going and going. So that went on for, I guess, 4 days, about 3.5 days. That's kind of how we were going, talking. Family would come in. The Masters had started, so we were watching the Masters. Nice. Yeah, we're a big golf family, and just anything we could to keep our minds off of it. And then I guess that fourth day, we just said we were going to stay the whole time, or stay until 40 weeks. And I remember one of the nurses we had the first night, Jen said, I'll be here when you get back. She's like, I got 2 days off. You won't see me. And sure enough, she's like, I cannot believe you're still here. And my wife, being the amazing, just outgoing woman she is and socialite, she was asking, I was laying there about half asleep, hearing her talk to all the nurses come in, asking me, are you dating anybody? Are you married? And all of a sudden now, they're like talking boyfriend advice and all this stuff. So it was pretty awesome there. Yeah. So then the morning of, we get up, and obviously we didn't know what was going to happen. Let me back up just a little bit. The night before, Jen started placental abruption, and we didn't know what that was at the time, and that was before delivery. That was probably the hardest part, to watch Jen be in so much pain. To have an epidural in and be in just, excruciating pain with the placenta pulling away, and me not really knowing what it is, and literally nothing I could do. That was, wow. Yeah, you talk about helpless. That was the most helpless I think I've ever felt.
And that's really what's happening in there. Mm-hmm. Is wow.
Yeah, and it was that was tough. And then and they lost the heartbeat a couple of times that night, twice. It was pretty scary because couldn't find it, and then they found it, and it's like, oh my gosh, So that last night was pretty much a roller coaster. And then the next morning, so we get up and things are a little bit better, in the morning, and so I go to take a shower, and with the bathroom, whatever, in the room. So I'm taking a shower, getting ready, and I'm coming out, and I got about almost a little more half my face shaved, And all of a sudden I hear somebody, so I kind of poke my head out to see who it is. And it was one of the nurses, and she goes, well, today's the day we're going to take the baby by C-section here in about 15 minutes or some of that nature. And I'm like, huh? So I go in and just, I don't know, about 2 swipes of the shave, throw on my clothes as fast as I could, and we go out and wheel her down, and we're sitting in, or finally, I'm waiting, I'm all scrubbed up and wash my hands, all that good stuff, and then so I walk in, and Jen's about to, cut her open, go C-section, and do everything. And so they got the little curtain up so I can't see. And so I'm holding Jen's hand, we're talking, and we hadn't actually chosen a name yet. So we had thrown around some boy names, some girl names that we liked. And we decided if it was a boy, we were going to go my family, because we wanted a family name. And if it was a girl, we were going to go her family. And so Dr. Mingy was the one that delivered her. And so they're going through everything, and she comes up and she goes, well, do we have a name? And Jen and I were like, and I was like, well, we said Evie. Evie it is. Evie. And so that was it was kind of a split-second decision that we do not regret.
Yeah.
So I guess right before that, they pulled Evie out, and they told us sometimes they may or may not make a sound.
Yeah.
And so, the doctor literally, Jen doesn't remember this part at all, or probably the neonatologist, I don't know who it was at that time, had Evie in both arms, and basically does the little swoop, hey, here's your baby, and then over onto intubation. And I remember when they were trying to intubate her, we didn't know, looking back on all of her paperwork, it took, was it the 5th time they tried or something? It was quite a while before, then obviously you don't know any of that's going on. But during that time, she made a little bitty peep. And, that little peep was like, I don't know, it just kind of, I don't know about my wife, but for me, it was just like, okay, she's going to be okay. And I didn't know that they still were going to try to intubate her about 2 or 3 more times. Yeah. So they take her up, take Jen, and they take me up. And, man, that was when it kind of got real, was when I went up, and to see her in what virtually looked like the big Ziploc bag, and they're getting ready to put, I guess, the PICC line in, all those types of things. So I'm up there, and I'm just like, I just have this blank stare on my face just watching. I'm in awe, 1, and 2, I'm like how, what? I got all these questions. It just, it's surreal. I don't even know what the word would be to describe it. And so they go to weigh her, and so they do the weigh, and they're like, Dad, look. And they're like, where's your phone? And I'm like, I'm kind of fumbling, like, I'm supposed to have my phone out. Is that legal? Can I do it? And I'm like, oh, it's here. So I find my phone, snap the picture. So she came in at 1 pound, 13 ounces. And she was 13 inches long. And so they did all the stuff. And I don't know. Some people describe, everybody has their different description of what their little preemie looks like. And I remember she was really red. And I don't know, I kind of blocked out what she actually looked like at that moment, because I really saw a baby, small baby, but baby. And so we're all done. They're going to do some other stuff to prep her. So I go down to get Jen, and obviously Jen's pretty out of it. And so yeah, that was just kind of the whirlwind. So then I go back up to see her. Jen was still, I guess, in recovery, or she may have been to her postpartum room at this point, but still pretty out of it. So I go to see the baby, and I'm looking at her, and she's in this box, and I'm just like, oh man, I was like, that's crazy, that's cool. Like, all these different emotions, like you don't know really what to think, but your baby's in there breathing, or the machine's breathing for her, but just an awesome deal. And then all of a sudden, Madison, a nurse who we're friends with to this day, comes over and says, well, it's time to change your diaper. Huh? I'm like, what? No, okay. I was like, I'll watch you do that. She said, no, you're going to do it. I don't know about that. And so that was actually one of the videos that we took. You're not supposed to take a lot of videos in there, but we took a few. And that was one of the videos we took, and I'm so glad we did. And it was me changing her diaper. And that was, I just touching her, I felt like I was going to break her. Just how fragile it was. That was crazy. And I remember my hands went in. I kind of touched. I backed out a couple of times, and but yeah, I ended up changing her diaper, and And it was a pretty cool feeling. And so then that next day was, maybe it was I think he was born on Monday. Next day was Tuesday. And so I do, I guess, what dads do that are suppressing everything. I go back to work.
Nice.
And so Jen's still in postpartum. A lot of our family's in town, and my reasoning was, well, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to need to take these days off here, these days off there.
Yeah.
So I better save the days. At least that's what I told myself. And so Jen and I joke about it now. She's like, you left me the day after our daughter was born, and in the NICU. And so I go back to work, coach him. And this was in the spring, and so we were, we'd have our lifting or athletic period. And unfortunately, I didn't work too far away from. I worked in a North Austin high school, and so fairly close. And I was actually that spring, my offensive coordinator really, really appreciate what he did for me. He ran the athletic period almost that whole spring for me to leave a little early or get out of there to go spend some time with Evie. So really appreciated that from him because I was pretty absent, and oddly enough, I just got the head coaching job that fall before.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty crazy. She was in there 130 days, and man, we were. I think I know for a fact I missed 2 days. 2 days of seeing her out of that 130. One. I had poison ivy so bad that I couldn't. It just wouldn't let me in the first day. Yeah. And then the second was I was going to go late, and Austin flooded, as it does when it rains really hard.
Yeah.
So my wife, I don't think missed. Actually, she did, but that was for a friend that she had to go kind of console in Dallas that had a bereavement, unfortunately. During that time. So during that 130 days. We, like I said, we were there pretty much. Jen was there all during the day. Jen ended up losing her job during the first couple of weeks of her NICU stay, and so that was fun. And so we didn't know, medical insurance, all this stuff, how that was all going to happen because she was going to go on hers and this. So we started paying for Cobra, and so now we had a job loss plus paying this exorbitant amount for insurance. So all of those things. So we had a lot of stuff we were kind of figure out there. We just bought this new house, and we hadn't even moved in yet. We were still in that remodeling phase. So we paid some people to move us, and I mean, we just literally had boxes everywhere. And when we packed up, different people were coming to help us pack. So there was to me, who was a very organized person, there was no organization to packing. Things were just thrown in boxes. Everywhere. And so we're kind of going through this. So we're unpacking. We're, people, family members are just hanging things in our house to make it look like a house. And, me being me, I'm like, well, that's not how I would do it. I'm not saying anything because I really appreciate it. Then we get moved in, and we're still NICUing it. Pretty much, living there. And I know some of our friends made the comment, basically we're just ships passing in the night because Jen would go during the day. And then I would, as soon as I got out of school, we would eat dinner in the cafeteria. We ate in the St. David's cafeteria pretty much every night. I ate there quite a bit. I thought it was good. And then I would stay till, whatever time I'd end up, falling asleep and having to go home. And then some mornings I would go back in before shift change, which I think was 6:30 or 7:30. I think shift change was 7:30, so I usually go before shift change and then go on to school. But that's how we, for 130 days, that was how we did it. I think for me during that time, working on the house, and because there was a lot of times I would, like during the day, I would have some opportunity to go up there with Jen. I was like, no, I got to get this done. And so I wouldn't go during the day because I always went at night. And I remember, or now talking to Jen, for me, it was like, if I got what was going to be the nursery, if I got all that fixed, if I got everything, all the remodeling done in the house, because I did a lot of stuff myself, if I got all that stuff done, then she had to come home. There was no choice. And so that was kind of my piece, was to go work and do and get those things done. And that's, I guess, really what kept me sane during the whole deal. And for Jen, it was being up there with her.
Yeah.
And that was kind of our two little ways of going about it. But during 130 days, we had, we pictures, and did the Father's Day, the Mother's Day, July 4th, her grandma's birthday. All those things. We didn't have to do the Christmas or any of that. I've heard of families, and my heart goes out to them. It was. There's a lot that happened in those days.
Yeah, well, in those, so 130 days in the NICU. There's commonalities. We all have a different story, but there's commonalities that we all share. And a NICU stay, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have days that you take 2 steps forward, and then you're going to have days where you take 3 steps back. Did you guys experience that? And if you did, what was that like?
Yeah, a lot. One thing I tell them, I don't know if you care if you're 1 day in the NICU, you're 500 days in the NICU. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And we just happened to be, at 130 where we were. We had, the honeymoon phase, like everybody talks about. She's doing good. Maybe get off the vent, and then you have the days where you go in there and they bag her 3 times. And the joke with Evie was kind of like, we would have different family members come over, and it seemed like every time a new family member would come into town or something to see her, she would, have her Brady and have to be either bagged or whatever. And so the joke was, it's not a day in the NICU if Evie doesn't scare the living dog out of somebody. But yeah, we had several setbacks. I got to the point where I told Jen, I said, if you're going to call me on my cell phone, I said, will you please just send me a text and just say, hey, I'm about to call you? Because every time the phone rang, it was just, that's the phone call. That's the phone call.
Mm.
That's the phone call. And I had her, I was like, you just got to text me. You can't just call me. And, and then we got a couple calls. Obviously, we befriended the nurse. Evie had 5 primary nurses. They told her she couldn't have any more primaries. And it's probably because we wouldn't shut up. We wouldn't stop talking to the nurses. We were like, hey, okay, you're here. You're going to talk to us. You're going to be our counselor. You're going to be our coach. You're going to be our...
Yeah, that's your NICU family.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. And still really good friends with some of them to this day. But we had those setbacks, and, it was... we just kind of rolled with it. How you dealt with it is it happened, and when the outcome was a positive one, just she was still alive. You were just thankful, and you went on. And when it was positive, but not as positive, like vaccine time, and then she got a coli once, she got pneumonia once, so back to vent.
Wow.
Yeah, so you get those big, you're almost high flow cannula, and you're like, all right, we've gone through this progression, CPAP, cannulas, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, back to intubation. And so yeah, it was tough, but it just really got to be, I don't want to say routine.
I was about to ask you, do you get used to that? When 130 days, that's a grind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an incredible grind. So having that, let's say if you had a situation happen at 100 days, were you handling that the same way you handled that at 30 days?
For the most part, especially once we had to say about that, 30,
mm-hmm.
whatever that day was, where it's like, okay, we're kind of settled in.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing. And, I guess the terminology that we use in the NICU is this is our new normal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we had to approach everything. Well, okay, she's on the vent today, then this is our new normal for today. Where do we go from here? If this beeps today, that didn't beep yesterday, this is our new normal. And, feeds, have the issues with feeds. And she actually got, I can't remember exactly, my wife would know the exact day. She got the pneumonia the second time right before we got it. We were supposed to get out right around the due date. Because everybody puts that due date as the target.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was, okay, well, it might not. And my wife had kind of got her mind set on that due date or right around that due date. And that was when she got pneumonia again. And so we stayed an extra, I don't know, however many days till she got well. And really, right after she got well after that, like, she's got to go home. Like, she's just going to stay here and just keep getting sick. It's time to go home. And she's a fat baby at that time. I can't remember what she came home at, but she's a good-looking baby when she came home. Yeah, they do a good job of fattening them up in there. But yeah, that one was kind of tough. And I remember one of the nurse practitioners, I think it was Crystal, telling my wife, because like I said, Jen's, if it's a public situation or whatever, she can be business whenever she needs to be business and keep that guard up and those things. And I remember her telling my wife, it's like, you can be pissed, you can cry. Well, my wife did cry, but you can, you can yell at us. You can, these things are okay. And I think that went a long way for my wife to really say, okay, this is where we are. It's okay to be angry. And then we were good.
That's nice. All right, so you guys did 130 days in the NICU.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I guess we always want to tell new NICU dads, all of us other NICU dads that have been in it know this, but things don't stop in the NICU. Your NICU stay is your NICU stay, but the journey continues once you get home. You have medical issues, different things like that you have to deal with, doctor's appointments on doctor's appointments on doctor's appointments. So it doesn't end. You guys, I know, have dealt with a lot outside of the NICU or after the NICU. What are some of those things, and what all have you experienced on that?
Okay. We had Evie, we had all set up all of our therapies before we got out. Evie came home on oxygen, came home with a bradycardia monitor, and had our OT, PT, speech. I think we had all of them. We've had a bunch of them, so can't remember all exactly which ones we started out with. Jen and I both work full time. At that, Jen had actually got a job working for Hand to Hold to help. That provides all the supports for preemies and whatnot, psychosocial supports and bedside supports, and through that deal started kind of part time, and so it gave her something where she could be at the NICU and work on. And so I was working full time, she was doing that, starting a new job, and juggling all of Evie's therapies and this kind of stuff. And only one of our relatives lives close, so that piece was tough. But I tell you that early intervention was instrumental. And I think that really helped her to hit the milestones that she hit when she hit them. Obviously not when your term babies will hit them, but be able to still get to those milestones. And so I remember she came home on oxygen, and this is a little funny story. She was on it for, I forget how many months afterwards. We'd be in the stroller out meeting our new neighbors because nobody had seen us for the last there was some construction at this house, and then nobody's there. Mm-hmm. And so we're out and meeting neighbors, and they want to see the baby. And we're like, well, we got our little stop sign up, don't touch. And all of a sudden, he starts beeping because we had to take our monitor and our oxygen tank with us. And so we didn't meet a lot of neighbors real on early. They're like, okay, well, nice to meet you, bye. Yeah. But now they're all great now. And so she was on the oxygen, and I remember one night, we went to the pulmonologist. And basically they told us we were kind of at that point where, okay, we can start weaning her down. So we were kind of weaning her, and just as parents, we just couldn't cut the cord and say, okay, no more oxygen. Wasn't going to happen from the road we had traveled. And so one night we're laying in bed, and Evie slept in a little, I forget what you call it, halo deal or whatever in our room. And I remember the monitor went off, low oxygen, and so I kind of wake up and I look at it, and it's just right, it's like right at the 91 or whatever. It's like, okay, we're okay. She's probably just, I kind of reach down and reposition her a little bit and go back to sleep. Well, it keeps going off. So I get up, I look, Jen's like, it's not going off. I was 70, 68. So, it just keeps, I'm like, what the heck? So I jump up. Well, she had got the cord wrapped around her neck. Oh my God. And I run over, grab the cords, and they're pretty strong cords. I don't know how, but I got the cords off, broke one of them, got them off her neck, and I've tried to this day. I still can't break that daggone thing. And so I looked at Jen, and I said, well, I guess we're off oxygen now. So that was how she got off oxygen. So then rolling through, we've had, she's 4 years old now, just celebrated her 4th birthday, and she's a wonderful little girl, but We've had, we're still in OT. We're right now in it's PPCD, the preschool programs for children with disabilities. She got her autism diagnosis this summer, along with the ADD, ADHD. So she, still having some interventions, still having some therapies that are going on. But she's bright, smart, absolutely wonderful. She's, I guess the high functioning autism, which, is a blessing in one way and also kind of a curse in the other, because you hear all the time, your child's not autistic, your child's this, that kind of thing. And like, just hang out a little longer, just wait. But she's doing great. Yeah, juggling all those things has been, it's a little tough. And my credit to my wife, because being able to coach and do those things, and, Evie came home right during training camp, and, being away from that was hard. So she did a good job.
That was my next question. Is how do you shuffle all that? How do you shuffle those doctor's appointments, the therapies, all that, still working, not just juggling that? So I guess my question is, how do you juggle that? But also, how do you deal with that? Because I know for us, we did the same thing, but it was really probably for a year after coming back from the NICU. How do you juggle with that and the stress of dealing with your daily stuff that you have to do, your job, your home, all that, and then all these added doctor's appointments that normal, delivery parents don't have to deal with? How do you juggle that?
Well, my wife juggled most of it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about that. One, the job she had, a little part-time, that definitely fed into her being able to do that. In the fall, like I said, it was we'd started training camp, and so being away from that is, I won't say not an option, but almost not an option. And so Jen and her mom really did a lot of getting Evie to her appointments. Anytime I could help, anytime I could take her, like that was I was on it, taking her to any appointment I could. I take her a lot more now, just because it's in the spring and the summer. And pretty much anything we could move to the summer, we would, because I was like, all right, that's when Jonathan can do it, and it was good. And then, through the fall, that season, Jen didn't really come to any football games, which was one of the first times I'd never seen her there. So that was tough. And it was really the first time I'd ever coached that, because we work all weekend, that on a Saturday, I wasn't going to just stay up there and watch film till late at night. It was, okay, I've got my film in, I've got my work done, now it's time to get home and, go see the baby, help my wife out and that kind of stuff. And literally as soon as I got home, it was like high five my wife, she's out the door, and I'm on duty. And so, we did that really all through the NICU, as well as probably the first 2 years, because we kept Evie home for a full 2 years. Everybody told us, don't take her out. And we took that to heart. We put the sign, if you come in this house, you're not wearing shoes, and you're washing and sanitizing your hands. And Jen said I was a little harsh on some people that came over, even family members. So I apologize to them if they listen to this.
I love hearing this, because I was exactly the same way. We did it for a year. And if you came into our house, especially with small children, for us, our daughter was in elementary school. And so she would come home. I'm like, change your clothes. We became the biggest germaphobes, and it was hand sanitizer everywhere in our house.
Buy the case on Amazon.
Real. Oh yeah, you had to wash your hands and don't touch the baby. Don't touch the baby. So you guys did that for 2 years. I mean, I know just from my experience, that puts a strain on your marriage, your relationship. Already a NICU stay puts a strain on your marriage and your relationship. Not just with friends and family, but mainly with your spouse. And so that time of basically incubating after you come home, I know for myself, that was a huge strain, because you're not going anywhere. You're not taking the baby anywhere. And it's almost like you don't get to celebrate the birth like everybody else gets to. You basically hide. And it's just you and your wife. How did you guys deal with that? And do you still deal with it now, or how did that go about?
We were home. We didn't take her out. Fortunately, she did not get sick or go back to the hospital or anything during those years. So we stand by that decision. We just talked. My wife and I said we're very social people, and we even at night we talk every night, to this day. And I think that was one of the big pieces that really helped us through it. Now, I'm not going to say there were plenty of fights, plenty of over those things of, I remember the one was, she asked me if I could take her to one of those doctor's appointments. I'm like, yeah, I can take her. Where is it? And I maybe the cardiologist or the neurologist is one of them. It's like, it's the neurologist. It's Dr. So-and-so. We've been there blah, blah, blah times. I was like, well, I've never been there. Exactly. You've never been, those little deals. Yeah. So I'm sure verbatim. And so we got past those, but I think just talking to each other and really for me it was recognizing. I said we did a lot of like tag teaming where I come home and she would go, and I think that was a big piece of both of us keeping our sanity. Because I got to go out during the day, go to my job all day, coach, do these this stuff, and I get to work early, go work out in the mornings, do all those, while Jen was home with Evie. And then so when we came home, that was when, hey, you're out, I'm in. So now she got to go walk around Target for 2 hours. Whatever it is that consoled her, go work out, go to spin class, do all those things, and then come home and then we go to bed. And so it was, that I think that was an instrumental for her sanity was for me to kind of take over when she came home.
Yeah.
And really, there wasn't a lot to do, change a diaper, when she was on oxygen, just make sure everyth's good to go. I remember I've got a workshop in my garage, so she was in one of the little swing things, and this was after the oxygen time, and so I would go out, put her kind of right by the door where I could see her, and so I could work and do kind of some things in the garage where I could see her, and she was sleeping in the little roof thing. So that was kind of fun. But as a couple, how we balanced, because we were that we'd go walk 9 holes 2 or 3 times a week, go to happy hour, hang out, and then all of a sudden abrupt stop. And for us, we just we made sure that we were barbecuing out in the backyard, basically doing everything that we could at the house together. Using the patio, using the backyard, and then if it was one of us when needed to go, go. Nobody ever said no. And I think that was a big piece of it.
Yeah, that sounds like some successful advice there. I've got a question for you, and this might be a little unexpected, and we'll see how it goes. But I want to know what your worst day was in the NICU, and what your best day was.
Worst day in the NICU. I can tell you. Well, I will. It was the day that my wife was out of town. One of her best friends had a stillbirth, and so she was up to basically she was in the room when she gave birth, and that was the first time Evie took a bottle. And the day itself was good because I was like, oh man, Evie's taking a bottle, and did it, and then I was so excited, and so I talked to Jen that night, so she'd just gone through this huge emotional thing with her best friend, her daughter's in the NICU, and then here's Dad thinking, man, life's freaking great, man, Evie took a bottle, and phone goes silent. Yeah. So I call her back. I say, babe, I got cut off, and I mean that ended up being probably the worst day of that nature because I was so excited. I didn't realize what I'd just taken away from my wife. Yeah. Because I could have said, no, let's don't feed her today. We can feed her tomorrow. She'll be back tomorrow. And that was tough. And then anytime she got bagged, it was bad too.
Yeah, that was a normal bad day. What was your best day?
The best day was actually Father's Day. I remember walking in, and our primary nurses had Evie propped up and had a little card that she had made me, in quotes. And that was the first time it hit me that I was a dad. Like, I just, like, I knew as a dad, but, like, I felt like a dad when I saw that. And I was just like, man, it's like, this is pretty cool. And so, that was probably my personal best day.
Yeah, nice. Well, going through this experience that you guys went through and everything that you're going through now, what would be your biggest advice to NICU dads right now that are just, let's say that guy that's in for his first week or even first couple of days, where I would almost see like the advice might be different for a guy that's in there right now, day one, as opposed to week 2. But what advice would you give NICU dads that you think would benefit them?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is take pictures. And I know that sounds very arbitrary, but as I look back, I've put all hers in different folders from her NICU stay by month. But take however many pictures you think you're taking, take more. Take more. Because as we go back and look, I mean that's when your baby's born, and it's big time. And take as many videos as you can. And if you got to hide it like we did, just hide it. Take videos. And I know it's not emotional advice for being in that NICU day 1, day 2, day 3, or day 400, but when your child's 4, like mine is now, and I'm sure as she gets older, it's emotional advice for then, because I think it's important. That'd be my biggest piece of advice, is take more pictures. And we took a lot, don't get me wrong, but there's still, like actually my wife and I were just talking, we do not have a picture of Jen and Evie on her first Mother's Day. We have pictures of me in the NICU, we have pictures of her in the NICU, we have pictures of Evie. We don't have a picture of her. And I'm like, man, how did I miss that? The other things I would say is talk to your wife. I hear, my wife tells me in her job now, so many stories where a lot of things are left to that mother, and the dad doesn't, for whatever reason, isn't talking, isn't doing. And I think just do and talk. Ask her how she is, and then shut your mouth. Because giving advice, whether it's right or wrong, just ask her how she is, ask her about this, that, and I know for my wife, in hindsight, that we've talked about it, is some of those times when I would ask her just a most random question, and then she would, for lack of a better term, she would get pissed. But then, later on, she was like, I really appreciate you asking me about that, and I think that's important, just that they know you're there and you care, even if what you say is wrong, connected. Because it usually is. That'd be a big thing.
Do you have any advice for, I don't even like using the word former NICU dads, because I really feel like when you're in the club, you're in the club, and we are in the club, and it is a club. Nobody else really understands. You have your friends and family, but unless you've been in a NICU stay, you don't know about a NICU stay.
Right.
Do you have any advice for guys that have been, out 5-6 years and, anything like that? And do you see, and what I'm talking about, or what I guess I'm trying to get to, is, the numbers now that are coming out of NICU dads suffering from PTSD, even, just the different anxiety levels that's going on, and some of the other issues that even moms, that we've seen moms deal with, now having dads go through that. Do you have any advice for NICU dads about that, or do you deal with any of that yourself?
I don't. My wife says I do.
Yeah.
Now there's little things that pop up, every once in a while that, any videos. Like I tell my wife, you're not allowed to show me any video or anything after 8 o'clock, because I'm about to go to bed and I don't. But I'm I see a little video or something like that. Yeah, my heart goes out. I still cry. I tell my wife, I'm just an emotional person, and I'm feeling, and she's not. That's actually probably more like PTSD. But down the road, I think for me, the biggest thing is to talk about it, is to share. Like I told you before we started, I don't think I've ever shared the full story beginning to end with anybody, but I've shared every single snippet multiple times. Whether it's I meet just a random NICU dad, because like you said, once you're in the club, you're in the club, and just like the joke about with the moms, if you're in a store and you hear somebody mention something about boom, you go talk to them immediately. You're friends. And so I think that's important. Just if you can offer advice or you can help somebody else in any kind of way, do it. Because for me, telling that story and talking to people is kind of that self-therapy, and lets me relive, like, man, that was tough. I've kind of blocked this here and there, but I did go through that. That was tough. And I think that's probably an important piece, for being out. And then, my wife and I would say we talk something about NICU related, preemie related, Evie's disability related, something of that nature every single day. And we've had family members like, you guys got to let this go. You guys got to let this go. And I'm like, well, I mean, we're not really going to happen, but
this is life now.
Yeah, like this is where we are. This is who we are. And you get the don't let this define you. Mm-hmm. And I disagree. I'm like, this does define you. This is who I am now. I went through this experience. Now I'm going to use this experience to define me and make me better for whatever purpose, for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's insane. For us with our NICU stay, it blows my mind that I say this, but it changed our lives.
Oh, no question. No question.
And for us, I say it's like one of the best things that ever happened to us, and that's crazy talk. I don't know.
With that statement, I completely agree. I would say for my wife and I, it made us a much stronger couple.
Yeah.
We've been together just shy of 20 years. I guess just shy of 19 years. Be married 10 this summer, and we thought we were pretty solid. And I think that solid we had going into it definitely helped us make it through it, because I know the statistics on NICU stays and divorce and all those types of things. But I think coming in, since we did make it out, I mean, we are stronger. And that life-changing for us was the petty things that we did used to actually kind of fight about and bother us. Man, those don't even come on the radar anymore. Yeah. Like, you might say one thing and then both of you are like, like that's not even a deal.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say, but I think NICU parents might love their babies a little more.
Oh yeah.
Than non-NICU parents. Yeah. I mean, we tend to hold them a little longer and kiss on them a little more.
I try to. Mine doesn't like to be held. I try really hard.
Yeah. Hopefully she'll outgrow that. But, Jonathan, I want to thank you for coming out and sharing your story, yours and Jen's and Evie's story. And we want to wish you guys the best. And hopefully, everything keeps going your way. And we just really want to thank you for being here. And hopefully your story helps another NICU dad that's going through the same thing, because they are. And we just want to thank you for coming out, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was awesome.
All right. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Once again, please take a look at thenicudad.com. We continue to grow the list of resources we are bringing NICU dads. To my fellow NICU dads, good luck, and remember, you are not alone.